Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
We're live at the Miami Book Fair, powered by Life Improvement Radio, Tollter.net for more information, Twitter, Tollter, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, LinkedIn, Neil Haley, Instagram, Total Tutor, Pinterest, Neil Haley, and Google+, and also on Periscope at Total Tutor. And let the Miami Book Fair continue with such amazing authors. So I first want to welcome to the program my co-host, Eric Remmel, Life Improvement Radio. Eric, how are you?
Great, Neil. How about you?
Fantastic, Eric. We just keep going with very, very interesting authors, so I'm excited to welcome to the program author Lyn Millner. Lyn, thanks for calling. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Are you enjoying the fair so far?
Oh, it is awesome.
What do you think is your favorite moment so far at the fair? Hopefully you did arrive on time. Like a lot of people, because of the weather, they didn't get the opportunity, but I don't think that you had that situation at all. But
I didn't. We had some rain. We had some rain yesterday afternoon, but even that was great. You know, when it rains in Miami, you don't get cold. So,
exactly.
It's really quite pleasant, yeah.
So tell us specifically what you think was one of your favorite things you've attended so far at the fair.
I saw Stacy Schiff yesterday afternoon, and she was great. You know, they were running a little bit late, but she was worth waiting for. She showed pictures of, photos and drawings, not photos, obviously, but drawings from the 1640s, and it was just amazing.
Wow. And and you were just blown away, and that's what's so cool about the fair, Lyn, is that what you're going to get to see, the authors you get to connect with, the fans, all of that's fantastic for sure. So tell us a bit about your book now, for sure.
It's about a cult that no longer exists, but very much exists still in the public imagination. There was a man in 1869 in upstate New York who had a vision. He believed that an angel appeared to him in a vision. His name was Cyrus Teed, and he was a distant cousin of Joseph Smith. And he came along a little bit after Joseph Smith, and I think probably took some ideas from him. So he had this vision. He believed that he was sent to save humanity. So he set about trying to convert people. And he was a doctor. He tried to convert several of his patients, who promptly found other doctors. So for about 15 years, he was, hugely unsuccessful. But then he came to Chicago from New York, and he spoke at a mental sciences convention, and suddenly he found success. And people started following him, and journalists started following him and sort of harassing him, and also husbands, because many women left their husbands for this man, Cyrus Teed.
Wow.
So after a while in Chicago, he was getting sued by husbands. He couldn't pay his bills. He was getting persecuted in the media. So he started looking for another place to live, somewhere that was a little more isolated, where he could build this communal utopia. And he had visions of this huge city that he would build. So, of course, he came to Florida because, like you do. And he brought these city folk, these followers, with him to Florida, and they did, in fact, build a city. It was not quite the city he envisioned for 10 million people. It was supposed to be 3 times the size of New York. Never quite got there, but he did have, at the height of the community, he had about 250 followers, and they were devout. And then the press down in Florida also began attacking him, and there were some political trouble, and that led to a street fight in downtown Fort Myers in which he was injured. And he died 2 years later, not from injuries of the street fight, though that's what his followers like to say because it fits his martyr narrative. And then once he died, the followers sort of started to dwindle. But he had amassed almost 7,000 acres of land in southwest Florida. And as you can imagine, it became more and more valuable. So that created a little bit of a drama modern day. And it continues up until today's kind of real estate, shenanigans going on even now.
Lyn, I think this is fascinating in so many ways because we hear about cults and specifically how people say they're illuminated in specific ways and people follow them, but always finally that cult ends up being something that doesn't look good for the leader, right? At one point something happens to them, regardless of how many followers they have. At one point it's over, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's a really good insight, and I think there's a lot of pressure, and when you start preaching and you're this very public figure and you have sort of unpopular or edgy ideas, it can often spell your doom. And you can look through history at that and see examples of that. Joseph Smith, as successful as Mormonism is now, his own life, he didn't fare too well, but his followers were able to carry on without him. But you're right. Yeah, absolutely.
Lyn, what was the research like?
I think anyone, but you're right, for sure. And the reasoning of understanding these, and then today's people that have created these cults and how they've really messed up families and society in general. Lyn, have you been getting feedback from people like that have been told about, stories like this one with Cyrus and other places in more even modern times?
No, but you know who I have heard from, and this is very interesting. The group believed that we live inside of the Earth. In fact, they believed that the entire universe was contained in the Earth. So the sun, the stars, the planets, all contained inside of a gold-encased Earth, and that there was nothing outside. The entire universe was inside. So they lived on the inside crust. It's a little bit hard to visualize. But they thought that they proved it. They developed an apparatus they called the rectilineator, and they ran it along Naples Beach in Florida, and they kept very careful calibrations and proved to their satisfaction that the Earth was in fact concave. And they wrote about it. So what has happened is that there are people who believe that the Earth is hollow, and they have been in touch with me, which has been very interesting. I've been able to share the Koreshan's research in a way that, it really hasn't been out there. People haven't understood it very well. And so I've been able to kind of translate this very dense scientific data and the calculations they made and sort of help people understand how exactly they thought what they thought. And I think this Hollow Earth group is very interesting. Not only this one particular group, but also I've been contacted by a man in Canada who believes it, wants to know more about the lives of the people who did the experiment. And it's just generated some interest that I had not expected. It didn't occur to me that there were people who believed that the Earth was hollow and that were very devoted to this. And so they've had a lot of interest in the book and in the research, which has been kind of fun.
That's really interesting. I was going to ask you what the result was from the book. How was it accepted? If you had other people from other groups come out and comment on it, since, obviously this was some time ago, the prophet you were doing. So it's interesting to hear that people have come out and contacted you.
Yeah, it is. And there is one group that is recreating. They have rebuilt this apparatus called the rectilineator. They have built it out of aluminum. And they're taking it as we speak, they're taking it to South Padre Island in Texas, and they're recreating the experiment. And they have high hopes that it will prove to the world that the Earth is actually concave. Now, I don't believe this, but I do believe that it's important for everyone to, pursue their passions, and certainly this group is doing that.
Is there any future works? Like I'm sure this was quite an educational experience learning all this stuff. Do you have any other books you want to write on the subject, or any future works planned?
I'm looking at that now. I know I want to write another book. I'm the kind of person who really needs a project. So my husband is actually looking forward to my working on another book too. So I'll stop, cleaning the house and shopping and doing all sorts of silly projects. But so I'm looking at different projects. I know I want to do another historical nonfiction, something or other, but I'm just sort of researching and looking into different things at this point. And I'm not, I was never really interested in religion. But I wrote this not so much because of the religious component, but just because I thought the Koreshans were just damned interesting, and no one had written an entire book about them. So I guess I've got to kind of wait for the next thing, and I'm researching a couple of things now.
Now, Lyn, I guarantee at the Miami Book Fair, there's going to be people that come up and discuss cults with you. Not just the cult of Cyrus, but cults in general that have come up throughout generations in different things that we hear stories about, on 2020 or, I'm shocked that you haven't gone and come on programs based on studying his to understand what leads people to want to follow a cult. In that book, by writing about Cyrus, have you spotted what led him? I guess his charisma is one thing, his attraction's another, that leads people to follow a type of cult.
Yeah, the question that drove me to write the book was, how could people give up everything to follow this man to a mosquito-infested jungle in Florida to build a city? To build a city, no air conditioning, back in 1894, by the way, and they were planning to build a city for 10 million people, and they really, really believed in his views. They believed that he was a Messiah sent to redeem them, and that they were going to live forever on Earth. So, but the thing that kept bothering me was these were educated people. These were cultured people. They read. They had a drama troupe. They had an orchestra. And I think I like to believe, because education is so important to me, part of me, intellectually I know this is not true, but I thought that education sort of inoculates us from crazy. But it doesn't. And so I was driven by this question of why would these people do this? And that, it took a whole book to explain that, but a lot of it was charisma, and a lot of it put me in touch with the fact that there is no match, common sense and logic are just no match for our beliefs. And we see it today with cults, and we even see it, if we are removed one step, we see it in the news. All of us live inside of these thought tribes. We are most comfortable when we surround ourselves with news that we agree with, when we surround ourselves with people we agree with. So we all have our little hollow earths, if we're not careful. And so that really resonated with me. But you're absolutely right. I've been approached by a lot of people who want to talk about cults. And in fact, the politically correct term now is high-demand societies.
You're kidding me. Are you kidding me, Lyn?
No.
Seriously.
Well, because if you're thinking about how you want to get your loved one out of a cult, you're not going to call it a cult. You're going to say, I've noticed that this society makes a lot of demands on you, and have you thought about that?
Well, when you think about it, especially we look at even these times of the the terrorists and how they were recruited to believe certain beliefs and to go and do something and kill themselves. You wonder how people are able to brainwash people into ideas and thought process. And that's the biggest part that we don't say on the news. And, we want to talk religion. It's not religion. It's basically somebody telling people a story based on some belief system to follow a certain type of prophet of an organization saying, if you do this, there's going to be something more monumental for your life than what is on this earth right now. And think about even the people who commit these heinous, that are not terrorists, shootings, just so they can live into the cult of being popular.
Right.
That's a cult too, Lyn. Think about it. How many people want to have their 15 minutes of fame?
Yeah. And actually, I talk about in the book, I sort of put Cyrus Teed in the context of everyone from David Koresh to Charles Manson, because it applies so much today. A lot of people haven't heard of Cyrus Teed, but they've certainly heard of David Koresh. They've heard of Charles Manson. They've heard of the Shakers. Not to put all of those in one, group, but it shows the sheer expanse of different belief systems that people can become attached to, and also we don't think of ourselves out in quote unquote normal society as being brainwashed, but we do a pretty good job of of talking ourselves into certain beliefs that might not be true. If you look at, we drained the Everglades many, many years ago and thinking that was a good idea. And now the sea level's rising and we're looking at water, again. So we really believed we could control the environment, and we can't. So that's even kind of something we're still arguing about today and still in these kind of camps of belief about.
All right. Well, fantastic. Eric, I think that's this topic, again, that Lyn is discussing is really out there, isn't it?
It is, and we've seen in the last couple interviews today that there's really been a growing need for more awareness and concern and making people educated to the effects of this and to take a bigger look, and so many people aren't.
Definitely. Lyn, where's the best place we can find information on you, purchase your book, and learn more about you?
My publisher says that it is available wherever books are sold. I have found my best luck either through the press or through Amazon.com. They have it. And you can find more information out on my website or on my Facebook site. Pretty easy to find. The website is lynmillner.com.
Well, fantastic. And so I'm telling you, by the time you're done, you'll be talking about cults all day long for sure. It's not over yet. And then I'm sure at 1:30 there'll be questions. So what is your talk on? Involved in cults at all in the 1:30 discussion?
Well,
or what?
It's a panel on Florida history, and thank God there was a focus for the panel because there is so much that I could talk about. So I'm going to tell the story of the cult, but it's also kind of a Florida real estate story because Cyrus Teed was able to get this property in Florida for a song. So I'm going to be talking about how he was able, his charisma, pulled this person who had sacrificed everything to settle this land in Florida. And Cyrus Teed, kind of scammed him out of the land. So he's one of the first Florida land scammers. So I'm going to talk about that land, what it looked like then, how Cyrus Teed got it, and it should be really interesting. And then my fellow panelists are talking about Florida history as well. So one thing is they're going to be talking about women's contributions to Florida history, and I'm going to be talking about a man who was very eager to get contributions from women in Florida history.
All right. Well, best of luck to you. Thanks for calling, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Thanks so much. This was great.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right,
bye-bye.
You're listening to Author's Corner, powered by Life Improvement Radio on the Adult Education Network, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.